Hey, what's up you guys? I'm Sara Lubratt, and this vlog, I'm going to at least one national park with my parents, and I think that working on my book's synopsis could be a good project for me to work on during the downtime of this trip. Kind of also because then I will make myself finally work on a synopsis, because that concept has been kind of scary. You know, because my book was like 133,000 words. I think it's now at like 112 or 111, and I basically have to summarize all of that into a page. The reason that I'm doing this is because I've started doing some literary agent research, and I've noticed that that is something that not a lot of literary agents ask for, and a couple of the ones that I have been researching and have been adding to my want to query list do require a synopsis as part of their submission package. And so that means I have to write a synopsis. I have not really started researching how to write a synopsis yet either. I'm sure that we'll cover that in this video. Not me telling you guys what to do, because I don't know what I'm doing, but me trying to learn how to write a synopsis letter. Is it even called a synopsis letter? It's probably just a synopsis. But in a very brief Google search that I did this morning, one of the first pieces of advice was to make every major plot point a sentence. And I'm like, okay, can probably work with that. But I'm just gonna work on brainstorming this list of like concepts and plot points and anything else that I can come up with that I would want to include in a synopsis. And then I'm sure that I will do more research on how to actually write one. And then I'm gonna give it a shot. I start actually working with my synopsis at this timestamp if you wanna skip ahead. Just got locked on my balcony. I am staying alone in a hotel room, but I went outside on the balcony to see how dark it was, and the door closed behind me, and then I was like, oh, I don't have my phone. So I turned around and I tried to open the door and I couldn't open it, and my watch battery was dying. So I tried calling my dad because I'm here with my parents. My dad didn't pick up, and I didn't know who else to call. I didn't know how to easily access or look up, or if I even could look up like the hotel's number to call the front desk. And thankfully, like, somebody walked by, and I'm on like the second floor. Thankfully someone walked by and I like yelled at them. I was like, I'm stuck, please help me. But I had already like deadbolted and like flipped out the little safety thing on my door, and so he like went and got a key, and then he tried to get in, but because of the little safety thing he couldn't get in, so he needed to like go back and find like a hanger to like pop that thing out, and then he was able to like get into my room and then get onto the balcony and like let me back into my room. But now my adrenaline is pumping. That was way more exciting than my night was supposed to be. Back on my couch, and you know what that means? I didn't end up working on this when I was on my trip. I think I made 2 notes of plot points when I was in the national parks, and that's it. I do kind of feel like I'm experiencing some kind of hesitation because I don't know why a synopsis and a query letter are different, which is like kind of stressing me out. But I got back from the national parks 2 days ago, took my parents to the airport yesterday, and I should probably give the synopsis a shot. So then I went to a birthday party, and then I went camping, and while I was camping I did take my notebook because I wanted to give writing my synopsis a shot without the pressure of seeing the word count on like a Word doc screen. And I got halfway through writing my synopsis before I realized that I was missing like 4 major things that I felt like should be included in my synopsis, and I felt like I was probably already over on word count. So now it's been like at least a week and I haven't looked at it again, but hopefully I will do that soon. It's probably like 2 weeks, potentially even like 3 weeks after I went camping and tried to draft a synopsis in my little notebook. And now that I have typed that up, again, this is the version of the synopsis that was not fully all of my ideas. Now that I've typed that up, it was roughly about 500 words. I spent like 45 minutes working on it, and then I got overwhelmed. And I was kind of playing around with it because I'm trying to make things a little bit more succinct than when I was just doing this like stream of consciousness, while also adding in like one of my POVs that I was just blatantly skipping over. And now that this part is down on paper, I do feel like I will be able to get the rest on paper in a relatively restrained manner, is how I would like to put it. And restrained isn't even the right word, succinct is. It's just such a daunting task to break down this like 400 and something page book to a page or two of a summary. Also, again, somehow a summary is different than a synopsis. And then I went camping again, and I only brought one book and my notebook so that if I wanted to do anything other than read, I had to work on my synopsis. And even after working on my synopsis during my camping trip, I still had not written down all of my ideas. And I was just overwhelming myself instead of just letting myself go and write what needed to be written to then like pare it down later. I would just get overwhelmed and then stop working on it because I'd be like, well, I know I'm way over 500 or 1,000 words and I know it needs to be shorter. And I was just like psyching myself out about it. I'm leaving writing group, so video quality is terrible. But I get so frustrated working on my synopsis. I literally worked on it for like 12 minutes and then like had to get up and order tea and just like switch over to looking at Airbnbs instead because I was just like so annoyed. It's so hard to narrow down this book that I have spent years of my life on that is still over 400 pages long down to like less than 1,000 word synopsis. And I still don't know the difference between synopsis and summary. Well, I'm still working on the summary. I started this vlog probably like 2 months ago. Not summary, synopsis. I still don't know the difference. I'm summarizing basically, so I'm not really sure what a synopsis is. Maybe I'm writing a summary. I'm over on word count. I'm at like 1,500 words, but I want to finish this within like the next 9 days. So what that means for me right now is I'm about to have dinner part 2. I went to a yoga class tonight outside. It was gorgeous, but it like interrupted my normal dinner time. So I ate before, and now as I'm like waiting for my food after, I feel like I should sit down and try to just blaze through the last couple of paragraphs so that then at least I have a rough draft that then I can go back and edit. At least that's the hope. And I did not finish the rough draft on this day. My plan for today is to go to the library and not let myself leave until I'm done writing the rough draft of my synopsis. I know that as soon as the rough draft is done, I'm going to have a much easier time like finishing this because I find editing to be so much easier than the actual drafting process, especially when I'm trying to like sum up my book that took me so many years to finish writing into like less than 1,000 words. So that's my goal, is I'm gonna go lock myself the library until the rough draft is done today. Okay, well, I have now finished the roughest possible rough draft of the synopsis, meaning that I think I ended at 2,133 words, which means I need to now cut it in half. So basically I need to like summarize my summary to get to then my final version of the synopsis. I'm glad that now at least I have a rough draft done so that I could like print it out and like, you know, take that in a notebook hiking tomorrow and then hopefully try to like cut it down from there. But man, over 2,000 words when it needs to be under 1,000. And I probably have other things that I will want to add as I'm going through it, trying to cut it down. So I'm just leaving writing group, and I think I wrote a summary and not a synopsis. And so now I am just struggling with that reality. Thankfully, I now have a published author in my writing group, as in like one of the girls in my writing group published her debut novel. And so then I was asking her some questions about like, hey, how do you write a synopsis? Because I wrote this 2,000 word long catastrophe. And basically she was like, vibes, hooks, and tropes. And I was like, That's not any of what I have written down right now. I'm gonna jump in here and say I think this was a miscommunication. I think she was trying to help me write a book blurb and not necessarily a synopsis, because now that I've done more research and yada yada yada, we'll get into it, I don't think this is what a synopsis should be. And I was like, okay, cool. Now I just want to like have a mild panic attack. I didn't, thankfully, but I was kind of worried that I was gonna like really stress out about it. And then we like talked about it a little bit, and then I gave it a shot, and now I have something that's like 380 words long. That's pretty decent, at least in the way that I think some of my first drafts are decent. And so I worked on a rendition of that new 380-ish group of words a couple times, and I was just making tweaks, fine-tuning things, trying to make the phrasing punchier so that it really falls into like the vibes and the hooks and everything like that. So I actually feel much more optimistic now after this writing group session. I had writing group last night. While I was at writing group, I found a really interesting website that phrased this really well. And it says, first, build your synopsis structure. Don't take your massive 100,000 word manuscript and try to figure out how to cram all its rich complexity into 500 words. It can't be done. You'll go crazy. Your synopsis will be terrible. That felt like a personal attack. I'm so beyond grateful for the girls in my writing group, because in writing something like a synopsis, it is so helpful to have the outside feedback, both from somebody that has read my book and so can read my synopsis as a reader and then tell me what she feels like is important or not important for me to include in a synopsis. And then another girl in my writing group has not read my book yet, so she doesn't know like how the story ends. So she's able to look at my synopsis with even more of a bird's eye view of somebody who has not read the whole book yet. So there's me way down in the weeds, my friend that has read the book, and then my friend that has not read the book. So 3 different levels of people being able to work on this synopsis, and it has been so incredibly helpful to like send it to them, get feedback, make those changes, make some of my own changes based on their feedback, and then send it to them again. I've probably sent it back and forth with them like 3 times now, and then I found an editor on Fiverr that I wanted to send my synopsis to, and I finally got to the point where I was confident enough to send it to her last night, and then I checked my email this morning and she's already gotten the critiques back to me. I say critiques plural because I also had her look at my query letter, and I have not been brave enough to open that email yet and actually look at the feedback, but I know that I need to. I'm sure it's going to be helpful. I think I'm just really nervous to have like professional feedback on this. So here goes nothing. Okay, so one of my biggest issues that I've run into while trying to write a synopsis, because you have like up to 1,000 words, but realistically you should probably try to stay between like 800 and 1,000, is that I'm dealing with 3 main characters, and I didn't realize how hard that was going to be, both in a query letter and in a synopsis, because some of the main... What is that? Because some of the feedback that I got was about how things should happen in the synopsis as they happen in the book, which means chronological order. But I feel like that would almost be more confusing, because as I currently have it, I have like a paragraph for each of my 3 characters and then like closing paragraph of like how the story ends and how everything wraps together and everything. And that's really tricky. I just feel like things would be so confusing if it was done in chronological order, just because like 800 to 1,000 words, there's a bunny. As I was saying, because in 800 to 1,000 words, if I'm hopping and like jumping between these 3 POVs, like you're gonna get lost in what's happening in the story, just because it's not gonna be as clear or as like blocked out. I think this feedback was like very, very, very good, don't get me wrong, and I still need to read through the rest of it, but that one jumped out to me as like, I'm gonna need to look at that, and I should probably just draft something and put something together and see how it goes. But that's just interesting. She also had some really good feedback on my query letter. Also, just to give this editor props, she left 15 very, very, very well thought out comments on my 1.5-page long synopsis, and 8 comments on my query letter, as well as like some overall feedback that she sent back to me, as well as line edits and tweaks and changes and stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave her link down in the description box below where you can find her on Fiverr, because I think that this feedback is very helpful. So if you get to a point where you need this feedback, I would highly suggest using her as a resource. And now I get to go digest and play around with my query letter and synopsis again. All right, good morning. I am now back in Utah. I think it's been probably about a week since I talked to you guys last, And when I talked to you guys last was when I got my query and synopsis critiques back from the Fiverr editor. And I've had my time to like sort of sit with the first pieces of information that I had, because I didn't read over all of the comments. I just kind of skimmed because I got a little overwhelmed. And now it's time to actually sit down and go over the feedback that I got so that I can start coming up with a plan for how to move forward. That's what we're doing today. I'm going hiking later, so this felt like a good time for me to like read over the comments, and then I can go hiking and I can think about it on my hike, and then hopefully either later today or tomorrow at writing group I can actually get started on making the necessary changes to my query letter and my synopsis. So I just finished reading through the feedback for my query letter and my synopsis, and at the end of the synopsis, my editor linked an article about how to write a synopsis, and the first paragraph I feel very singled out by, and it says, so many people dread writing the synopsis, because the instant mindset is that you have to take your entire 80 to 100,000 word plus novel and squeeze it down into a page or two, and that's where the stress comes in. Stress leads to procrastination, and that leads to the wrong frame of mind to be in when you finally force yourself to sit down and write it. That's me. I have been procrastinating my synopsis so much. I think I started this vlog like 3 months ago, and I'm still working on my synopsis. 4 months ago. Okay, I just need to do this. If you're at all like me, the first time you sit down to tackle the synopsis of your completed manuscript, you'll agonize over how the hell you're going to explain your entire novel in only a page or two. You'll end up typing a several page long summary of your book. That's what I did. It'll have details flying from every direction. It'll be exhausting to read, and you just won't feel good about it. You'll worry, is it too much? Is it not enough? And then once you realize how long it is, you'll stress even more about having to compress it further, and it just compounds the stress. How did she know? I'm glad I'm not having like a unique experience in doing this, and that at least for one other person, and I'm sure for a lot more than that, synopsises kind of suck. At least the process of writing one. I'm sure like once I have it, it'll be good, but the initial process of trying to write something is challenging. I was not really expecting to do that, but I just wrote a new rough draft of a query letter, and this is version 12, at least since I've been keeping track. So I've definitely done more than 12 versions of this query letter, but now I have a slightly shorter query, supposedly. I'm not saying it's good because I just wrote it, but I think that this could possibly be more in line with what it needs to be. And now at least I have a version of this that I can let sit while I go hiking, and then I can come back and look at this again later. So the hike that I'm going on today was the first hike over 1,000 feet of elevation that I've ever done, and I did that 3 years ago when I first moved out to Utah. And since then I have wanted to go back and do the cave tour, because at the top of this hike you have to like hike up, and then they offer like a cave tour, but you have to get tickets for it. And now 3 years of wanting to do that, I'm going back to do the cave tour today, and I'm bringing my synopsis with me because I don't know how long I'll be sitting at the top before the tour starts. I was already getting like the end of summer scaries, and I'm starting to see red leaves on this hike. That is where we're going. This kind of looks like what I imagine dragon scales looking like. Okay, well that was really cool. Look at this view. It's insane. So at one point, our tour guide said that we were 500 feet beneath the surface. He also showed us where the fault line is in the cave, which of course is the last thing I want to think about. Look at this view too. But that's of course like the last thing I want to think about when I'm, in a cave is an earthquake. There are some cave scenes in DE, so this felt very apt. Again, the view, are you kidding me? Some of the terms that the tour guide used could be terms that I choose to use in the book. Finally, after wanting to do that tour for 3 years, I did it and I loved it. The cave was really cool. It kind of started in a room that I wasn't all that overwhelmed by. I was just kind of like, oh, this is going to be kind of like a lame tour. But the cave system is made up of 3 bigger rooms and then connecting tunnels and stuff. And overall, I thought that was really sick. The lighting is just gonna be really bad, but I was working on my query letter tonight at my writing group in conjunction of me trying to work on my query letter and my synopsis, and the lighting is just gonna be weird, and it is what it is. But I think I came up with my comp titles. At least I drafted my first version of actually trying at comp titles instead of just oh, it's for fans of blank and blank. I'm no, it incorporates this thread from this book and this thread from this other book, and I'm hoping that that is more in line with what it needs to be. It sounds like it is based on the feedback that I got from my editor and some of the girls in my writing group that have much more experience with this than I do. So fingers crossed that I'm on the right track. I'm now on query letter draft 14. This never ends. Because the synopsis feedback that I received was basically these 3 POVs need to weave in together, I'm not gonna edit the current draft that I have. I'm just gonna open up a new document and start weaving the 3 POVs that I have written out into one more continuous storyline. At least that's what I'm going to attempt to do. So I tried weaving together those 4 paragraphs that I had in my more recent version of my synopsis, and I tried to weave those together to make it read more like it would read in the book. As far as POV switching, because a different character has a different chapter or whatever. And I ended up basically writing something incredibly similar to my first attempt, which was 2,200 words. And this one ended up to also be 2,200 words, which was still way too long. I'm on my way to writing group, and tonight I'm going to attempt to cut my synopsis in half because it's still well over 2,000 words. So I'm basically going to go through and attempt to summarize every paragraph in hopes that that will then help me cut down the overall word count to 1,000 words. Pray for me. We're back in my car with the worst lighting ever, but writing went so well tonight. I was able to cut down my synopsis from 2,200 words to 1,600 words, which 1,600 is still too long, but that means that I cut out 600 words. I talked to the girls in my writing group and basically asked them for their feedback and what they think I should do. And one of them asked me what story are you trying to tell in your synopsis? Because yes, your story is bigger than 1,000 words, but what are you trying to communicate within your synopsis? And I was that's super helpful. And then that helps me be able to cut out some of the subplots that are not crazy important to include in the synopsis and will just be fun little bonuses when somebody chooses to read the book. And I obviously still need to cut out 600 more words, but I am feeling good right now, so I'm just gonna choose to ride that high because so much of this video has been me suffering. It's now the next day. I am going to the library and I'm going to attempt to take out 200 more words from my synopsis just as a next step, and let's see how this goes. I just got back from the library and oh my gosh, I cut out 400 words. That means that the synopsis is now 1,200 words, which means that there are only 200 more words that need to come out. I don't know how that happened, but I'm not gonna question it. Again, gonna continue to ride this high because this has not been a thing, at least until yesterday. Well, I mean, I do know how that happened. I took my friend's advice on streamlining the synopsis to just the main plot, cutting out the extra characters that don't really need to be mentioned, and therefore some of the subplots, and really focused on the main themes in the main plot of the book. And who knew, but that's working. So I just did another pass of my synopsis and I ended up cutting out 63 words, I think. I think technically I was at 1210. So I would have taken out 70, hang on, let me do some math. 74 words. So my synopsis for DE is now 1,137 words. And I can't believe that I'm over 1,000 words down from where I started yesterday at 2,200 words. It feels like I've been struggling with working on my synopsis for so long. To have it suddenly feel like it's moving so quickly feels really odd. Like, just for your guys' frame of reference, I started vlogging for this video like 5 months ago. Like, this has been a process. But now I only have to remove another like 136, potentially a few more words to get it under 1,000, but I'm getting closer. I still want to cut out the extra 150 words, but I am starting to get to the point again where I need to stop looking at this. And so I'm going to send this to the girls in my writing group to see if they have any helpful tidbits or if they're catching some phrases that I could take out to cut down on word count. But this is going really well. I'm wearing the same sweatshirt, but it's the next day. I just got the feedback from the girls in my writing group on my synopsis. And now, after implementing some of that advice, the synopsis is now at 1,104 words, which means I am almost there. This person has also read like multiple versions of the synopsis, and she did say that she liked the story switching between the POVs more than like when I had it in paragraph format, when I had it like broken out like for one paragraph for each character and then where everything comes together. She said that she likes this like intertwined version a lot more, which is good. That makes me feel like I'm on the right path. And so now I have 104 more words I need to cut out. So I'm gonna do a pass and just see if I can get out like another like 20 to 30 and just see how this goes. I just finished up another pass. I'm calling this DE Synopsis Draft 9. Yikes. But it's now sitting at 1,045 words. I'm so close. But this is where like specific wording makes a huge difference. And I'm noticing that like I can cut down like 4-word phrases to like 1 word. I don't remember what the phrase was before, but I changed something. It was like 3 words and then the word overpower. And then I was like, wait, I can just delete those 4 words and swap in overpowers. And then I don't need the extra 3 words. And so it's like changes like that I'm having to find and focus on now. I got it down to 981 words. Woo! It like doesn't even feel real right now, honestly. I've been slaving over this thing for like 4 or 5 months. And then suddenly in the last 3 days, things feel like they're clicking and it's working. And I cut it down from 2,200 words to 980. Like what? So now that my synopsis is, finally under 1,000 words, I think I'm gonna send it. I'm gonna wait until tomorrow, obviously, because it's currently 12:34 in the morning, but I'm gonna wait until tomorrow. I'm gonna text some of the girls in my writing group, just get their opinion on it again, see if there's anything else that should be like obviously taken out or if it's kind of good to go. I did think about sending my synopsis and my query letter back to the editor that I had worked with, and then I checked and she doesn't reopen her orders for like another week and a half, and I want to end this video before then, so I might send it to her again after that, but I would like to close out this video as soon as possible, so I'm going to send this to my writing group again tomorrow, get their feedback, and then hopefully wrap up this video. It's been long enough. So then I had some of the people in my writing group look over my synopsis, and even though I still think I want to get it looked over by the Fiverr editor that I had worked with again, just to get her feedback, because I really enjoyed the feedback I got in the first round, I'm much happier with where the synopsis is sitting now. So even though I will still be tweaking it a little bit and I'll go back to that editor and stuff, for the sake of this video, we're gonna say that my synopsis is done. At least it is way further than it was at the beginning of the video, which was like 4 or 5 months ago. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe if you made it this far into this video. This is a long one, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.